I'm Pastor Darryl Webster, and we're celebrating 15 years of BOOTCAMP Connect, and we're so grateful that we reached men from all walks of life. We've been heard on 1,500 radio stations to several million people, and all we try to do is equip men, boys, fathers, and families from all walks of life to add value to them to become the best person that they can be. I have with me today Jon Strand. He's the son of my good friend, Greg Strand. Greg Strand is my friend that's been a friend now for probably over 8 to 9 years. And I met Greg. Greg was doing community work in the neighborhood. And our hearts was knitted together by Christ, and now we become great friends. Jonathan actually sit in a different place as a friend of a black African-American man who meant so much to our community. And I watched the news clip that he would give his heart, his shirt off his back to anybody who asked. But he was killed during the protest, and we don't know who by. And Jonathan is very passionate. Jonathan, welcome to BOOTCAMP Connect. Talk a little bit about your heart right now, you know, and how you're feeling. First, say a little bit about Chris, your friend who was killed.
Yeah, thanks for pulling me up here. And I think my heart right now, I'm in a place where I'm grieving, both for people, with people. Chris, I didn't know Chris super well, but I spent some time with him. Chris came over to my recording studio shortly after we built it. And this tells you what you need to know about Chris. Constant smile. Mm-hmm. And Chris knows everybody, you know, and he's immediately just looking at a stranger who he just met, you know, looking at me going, man, I'm going to help you out. And what you're doing is really cool. And this, you know, and just, I walked away, you know, at a sort of fragile place in a music career, so encouraged and so excited. You know, Chris would leave you feeling like, I can do this. And just warm greeting every time you'd see him at an event. I mean, I'm heartbroken on that sense of like the loss of that type of a light. And I'm also just devastated with watching his closer friends, you know, and his best friend, who is a good friend of mine, James Walden, DJ knows, the Indianapolis Colts DJ. Mm-hmm. And I can't stop crying thinking about him losing his ace, you know, and yeah, sorry.
It's all right. As you know, Jonathan, I really feel your heart, and I really feel the pain that you're going through now. And even though we have different colored skin, but we're knitted together by our hearts. And, you know, so many people are looking at the protests and they're trying to figure out the motivation behind it. And the motivation behind the protests is people who are protesting are hurting, the majority of people. That they are hurting. And Dr. King said, protest is the voice of the unheard. We know what really kind of pushed it off. And that was actually the George Floyd murder. Yeah. And when you talk about the George Floyd murder, we understand that it's the tipping point of all of the hurt and pain that black people have been experiencing from the system, particularly police. What makes the issue of police killings and shootings so bad is because taxpayers pay money to government to protect us, not to kill us. Yeah. The police killings is the start, but the deeper symptom is the systemic issues that we've been dealing with in America as a black man for years, for over 400 years. Talk to me about being 37 years old. You made a statement when you came in that you didn't know that it was this bad.
Yeah.
Talk to me, Jonathan, about how you see white privilege and racism in America from your standpoint.
I think for white people listening, I want to encourage you to let go of any fear.
That's
like,
good.
just let go of that. The first time I heard the phrase white privilege, I reacted in fear. I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't know me. I grew up poor, and I had to build myself, and the truth is like, no. I grew up with everything. I had 2 parents there. I wasn't profiled because of my skin. I never felt like someone was watching me walking into a gas station or a Starbucks or a school. And I never was afraid when I got pulled over by police. You know, and so, but I had to drop that fear and then just pause for a second and listen. And it's been a slow process, and I think there's still more I need to see. And I think with George Floyd, we can't ignore it anymore. And we can't pretend it's something else. And so part of what has also really opened my eyes is the more relationships with Black men that I've come into, just deep friendships, it changes you. And that would be an encouragement. Like the best thing that can possibly happen in your life is to develop deep relationships of diversity. Because I'm a member of or honorary member of a ski house in Colorado. It's a very diverse ski house, and I've been hanging with those guys for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now. And
a lot of Black people ski?
No.
I didn't think so, because Greg was trying to get us on the ski trip, and we haven't went on the ski trip yet.
And that's something that needs to change, seriously, because it's the best thing in the world, is to be falling in that snow or gliding. It's like you're flying. But no, but the guy that runs the ski house, his name's Quincy, and he's Black, and he's one of the best souls you could possibly meet. And when you live in community with people of other races, it's impossible to hold any sort of racist thinking. It's just, it just erodes, you know? And for me, like, I grew up with a dad that taught love. I grew up, we were in the soup kitchen or passing out groceries every Saturday, doing outreach, doing ministry, and you think, even in that position where I'm more exposure, you think you don't have these like prejudices or notions, and it's easy. So, that's another encouragement, is like, for any white people listening, like, examine, like, what sort of walls do you have, or what preconceived notions do you have? Because they can sneak in there, and it's usually fear-based, or it's usually, but once you start to have relationship and live in community, there's no room for it.
Yeah. You said something, Jonathan, that jogged my attention, and I'll let you go on this one. As it relates to living in community together, whether it's Black racism or white racism. I think one of the problems in America is the lack of trust from the stereotypes, number one, of white people's ideology. And white privilege also is an ideology. Because I'm white, you follow what I'm saying? I'm entitled. Because I'm white, I'm entitled to better health care. Because I'm white, I'm entitled to better jobs. Because I'm white, I'm entitled to better school. Statistics already say that Black people, even though we make up a small percent, 14 or 13% of our population, the numbers as it relates to the disproportionate numbers among Black people, as it relates to schools, as it relates to insurance, as it relates to affordable health care, as it relates to high-paying jobs. These are some of the systemic things, because I heard a guy say, well, I don't know what systemic racism look like. This is the systemic things that we have to talk about, because Black people who are poor, watch this, who have smart kids, sometimes their smart kids can't go to college because they don't have the money, versus white people who have kids who are not real smart, and I'm not calling y'all dumb. You follow me, I'm just making, their kids still go to college because they have the money, they have the backing. You follow me? They have the system behind them.
One of the things that's obvious is look at your white privilege
Mm-hmm.
and then take those things and start making them happen for black people.
Yeah. Dr. King had a quote that says, "We may have all come in different ships, but we are in the same boat now."
Yeah.
We won't be able to get out of this systemic problem that we're dealing with unless guys like you jump in the boat, jump in the ditch with us. And what we're trying to do is not just, yes, we can analyze the problem. There are stats about the problem, and stats are good. It talks about, I was reading Pew Research, and it was talking about the problems that we deal with, from our schools to jobs to instability with families to poor health care. But the only way we get out of these problems is that those who have been privileged, those lawmakers who make laws, and then those of us who are preachers and practitioners, we work on preaching the change from the inside. But those who are appointed to these public positions jump in the ditch and say, hey, I want to see it. I see the need. Now I want to feel the need. And then I want to do something about the need. The only reason the man on the Jericho Road was helped by the Good Samaritan is because the Good Samaritan saw that man's need. Now, there was another group of people who saw the need too, but they went to the other side. They looked at him and they went to the other side. This Good Samaritan, not only did he see the need, and white America see the need today with the protests. Yeah. They see the need, but after you see the need, guess what you got to do? You got to feel the need. Listen, seeing the need and marching is just the start. That's just the start. We have to have strategy, tactical, and practical solutions, not just to march. And I applaud the marching of peaceful protests. My professor, Dr. Darryl K, I spoke with him this morning. He said, I applaud the peaceful protests. I pray for the looting. He said, but the strategy is beyond the protest. 381 days before the bus boycott could turn things around. We got to see the need, we got to feel the need, but then we have to do something about meeting the need. And you know what the Good Samaritan did? He went over, touched that need, he bandaged that man up, then he said, hey, I'm going to do what I can to help him. In a way of closing, Jonathan, any closing remarks with helping, meeting, and reaching the need?
I'm struck by the quote, and this has been hitting me hard during these protests. Conviction is useless unless it's conducted into action.
Oh, like it.
That's Thomas Carlyle.
Say it again.
Conviction is useless unless conducted into action. So
yeah.
The emotion and the passion and the energy that everybody has right now is amazing. It's great. It's useless unless we act.
I agree.
And it's useless unless we do something about it. And so I'm sitting here from a posture of I want to learn. I have to learn more. There's a lot I don't know. But what I do know is I have to act. And what I'm looking at is like, where does it make sense to act and what's obvious now? And where it makes sense, where it's obvious, where your heart is called, follow your heart to bring that love into this situation.
I close today with a quote from Dr. King. He says, injustice anywhere is a threat everywhere. And we all are threatened by injustice. He made another quote that said, true peace is not the absence of tension, it's the presence of justice. It's the presence of justice. And one of the reasons why we're having these problems because there is so much injustice. And then the last quote from Dr. King, which I love, he said, lightning makes no sound until it strikes. And what we're dealing with is the lightning and the rumbling and the thunder and all of the buildup that's been happening for years. I hope my conversation with Jon today and then the video that will run with his father has been helpful. We're going to be having boot camp moments, a conversation around a real cause as we celebrate 15 years of saving lives and transforming destinies. I am your host, Pastor Darryl Webster. God bless you until we meet again.